Welcome everybody to today's Risk and Assurance Committee meeting. I'll start with karakia. Tā mai I runga, tā mai I waro, tā mai I waho, tā mai I roto. Kia tau al te mori tū, te mori ora ki te katoa. Humi e, hoi e, nā. All right, got our agenda in front of us today. Apologies, we do have a couple, Alistair and John, both apologies. And we have Jeremy, who is coming in late. And so on those. Thank you, Roger. Seconded by Lyndall. Four. Aye. Thank you. Declarations of interest, as per normal. If there's anything on the agenda that you need to excuse yourself from, please do so at the time. We have no people asking to talk at the public part of the agenda. Confirmation of minutes. If those who have looked over our last meetings minutes. David is happy with those. Thank you. Seconded by Lyndall. In favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. No notification of extraordinary or urgent business. And there have been no questions raised to the committee either for today. Chairman and councillors' reports. So, from myself, since I was last around the table, being the chair of the committee, I've received some information from the OAG, which I sort of keep in touch with, and they sent information out to the chairs of the audit risk committees, and they had one specifically from the Public Services Commission. The Public Services Commission have been looking across public agencies and giving them advice on value for money. Which I thought was an interesting topic, so I've got a couple of notes from that, which I'll just pull up now. What they were looking at specifically was from a leadership perspective of value for money. And the piece that I pulled out is they had some questions which, from their point of view, ministers could ask their chief executives. I also thought this would dovetail well for governance teams to be across the types of questions I will read out in terms of value for money. And this is coming from the Public Services Commission in terms of what they're saying the chief executives should be, the ministers should be asking of. Can you assure me that your agency is getting good value for money for taxpayer investment? And how is this monitored? How do you ensure financial literacy is strong across your agency, not just in the finance team? If you have cost recovered activities, when was the last time these were reviewed? Are any fees and levies covering more than the actual cost of service? Where are the opportunities for funding efficiencies by doing things differently? If you have large capital programs, are they on time and on budget? I think those sorts of questions would resonate well with those around the country and in this room. And the thing I took away is the simplicity of those questions, especially from a chief executive or governance team to ask of those around the table. I think just from our role, it sort of shows that even though there's a lot of complexity in the way that organisations are run, when we are sitting around the table and asking questions, asking those simple questions, making sure we get straight answers to them is absolutely vital.
Well, Chairman, we ask those questions all the time of each other and of our staff. So I don't think we can be accused of not asking those questions and seeking the answers, because that's our role.
Pleased to hear. It's so that hopefully gives you confidence that you're asking the right questions, asking those very much the critical ones in a simple way that people can easily understand.
Yeah, I pick that up. But also important that the staff know that, remember that those are the key questions that we ask, and they give us honest answers. I'm not suggesting that they don't really, but it can be challenging if you have to reveal or say something.
I think it's going to be things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I'm not suggesting that they don't already. Sorry.
No, but within all organisations, they can be uncomfortable.
Yeah. And this committee really needs to know the outcome.
Amy?
I was just going to say there was a workshop reviewing council committee structures yesterday, and one of the pieces of feedback, and it has been introduced outside of that workshop as well, was the need to ensure that we had all the council had good oversight of our capital works program. So in relation to that last or second to last question, that's being actively considered so that all of the information is coming to one place to enable fulsome and joined up oversight of very, very important program to us and to our community.
Mr. Chairman, while I see that we ask that all the time, we do, but I wonder if that's a fairly formal set there. We don't sort of, with the exception of what Erin's just said about our committee structure, but maybe it is something that should be recorded. We should, sort of have those at the top of the mind all the time to know how to do that. I mean, there are big questions, and as I say, that's all part of our processes, but there are specific things that we have to just make sure that we pick off all the time. How do you do that?
Yes. No, I certainly hear what you're saying. If I reflect on those, you can probably find within each committee terms of reference, that they would slot on here, or finance and performance committee, but it is the people around the table being cognizant of it and constantly being vigilant to make sure that you're getting the right answers that you need across those.
Yeah, following that, actually, if those questions are recorded in the minutes, then when the minutes come to full council, in your absence, it will be upon me, I suppose, to raise them at that council meeting, so that it becomes not just yes, we pass these resolutions, but it becomes a focus on that report. So
Yep, good.
Thanks to do that.
I can share those with you as well. So
Yeah.
I can share them with the committee. Yeah.
It would be good to share them around. I think they're questions that many of us have asked, but it's good to know that others are asking us the same questions.
That's right.
It's not just that we have been difficult at times.
Yeah, no, they are certainly the right questions to be asking, and nationally. Yeah, across all public media. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 1 in our pack, organisational risk report, page 12, which I will just turn to now. Right. This risk report update. Thank you for this, Amy. There's a number of things that have happened since our last committee, and so maybe if you would like to give just a very brief overview, and you can ask questions.
Kia, good morning. So as previously reported to the committee, we're getting support to undertake 3 key areas of work in the risk space, and we have completed one, which is part of the subject of the report, which is the risk maturity assessment for the organisation. The reason that we did that was to get an assessment of our current state and to think about how we could pragmatically and effectively improve our risk management practices across the organisation. So Julie Tweedy from Mobius Consulting, who's not able to join us today, completed the report, which is attached to the covering report, which outlines an assessment of our risk maturity. It's using a well-known framework that's commonly used in the public sector, and it assesses us at a load developing level of maturity and has outlined the 6 key areas where we could undertake some work to improve our risk posture. The aim is to, again, given the resourcing we have available in the organisation, various demands on the organisation's time, how can we, you talked about value for money, but, what are the key things that we can be doing that will make maximal impact on how we talk about and manage risk and report on risk in the organisation. One of the recommendations is in that report was also a second key area of our overarching program that we are asking Julie to do, which is a review of our strategic risks. So this work is also underway. We had a workshop with the executive, and councillors may recall there was also an initial presentation of that thinking to council for its input. That's going to be coming back to council on the 22nd of July, and we're going to talk a little bit more about risk appetite in relation to those risks. Leading up to that though, and we talked about the importance of our capital works program, there's going to be a workshop with councillors in a couple of weeks' time about our risk posture specifically in relation to our capital works program. So I'll take the rest of the report as read, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Might have a question. But I'm really pleased to see this work. Thanks, Amy and team, for getting it through to this stage. There's a lot of stuff points in there that I've had in the back of my mind. So the way forward is the future. Good to see the phase 1 opportunities. Particularly liked some of the wording in action 1, actually. And councillors might be sick of me saying things like, what's our tolerance? How are we going to treat it? What's the escalation process, that kind of thing. So really good to see that that's clearly identified in here, and look forward to the next bit, which is
Or, as I said, you've got a couple of workshops coming up.
Yeah.
We'll be starting to talk about risk tolerance, and we'll be working on actions outlined on page 19 of 19 and 20 of your agenda. What's some dates with my name against some of them, which we'll just start chipping away and getting in place. And a lot of this is about how do we make talking about risk and thinking about risk more common and more familiar within the organisation, because doing that means that we can get operational risks better managed, but we've also got a clear escalation pathway for risks that are significant, as determined by known and understood risk tolerances.
On it dovetails into the questions that you've just highlighted previously, doesn't it? So,
I guess there were several things in it. The bit about evidence-based being what we've got to head towards more, which it's common sense. The bit about on page 22, executive recently stopped reviewing risk papers before they go to risk and assurance. So risk can surface at governance level without prior executive scrutiny is good, because we should see things, not have anything filtered before it gets to us. And there was another thing on page 32 about the business continuity plans that didn't have the right copy or whatever when that wouldn't have been happening. So that was interesting that we had fucking copies, but they actually weren't the right version. So pretty important when you're reaching for something about how to do things and you haven't got the right versions.
Yep,
Yeah,
Amy,
but
yep.
can I just speak to that specific point? As councillors might be aware, you know, we have traversed with full council when we're thinking about our priorities going forward for the coming triennium, and you know, based on the workshop that we had with you, as you know, part of your induction at the end of last year, you know, making sure that we are in a posture to be response ready, you know, when we experience emergency events or disruption, as we call it, of any way, shape or form, is really important. So there is a separate program of work already underway, specifically, not just to make sure that we've got up-to-date and version control copies of our BCP, because those are hygiene matters, but that we have a proper system in place and that the whole thing works. So that's getting focus and attention. Like I said, it's underway right now.
And you know, that runs to the fuel for the generator and all
All
that
that,
stuff.
yep.
'cause, you know. it's,
Yes,
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Amy, for bringing this to us. I guess it's you know, wonderful to have the starting point identified, and the report itself certainly identifies a number of areas where there's opportunities for improvement, and includes a number of actions and some dates.
Yep.
I'm just wanting to understand how this committee maintains oversight of those dates and actions.
Yep, so a bit like we do with internal audit and our legislative compliance review, my proposal, and open to feedback, but in terms of what we're doing with the reports is to be similar. So I'll pop this into a table of, you know, what the action is, deadline date, and then we can report against how we're going in relation to that. If you want to see something different, I'm open to that, but that's how we deal with the other matters, and then you can keep an eye on progress that's happening there.
yes.
Yeah, so further to that, I guess I'm just looking at our annual activity plan. Our next meeting's 30th September, so we would see, I guess, an item in that on the organisational risk report, including a table of the actions identified in the assessment, and then some of those will be completed before then, given the dates that are beside them, I assume, we will hope. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, funnily enough, I was just going to suggest that if need be, and without putting undue pressure on staff and contractors, if we needed to convene a meeting before our next scheduled meeting, to cover any of that off, so that staff heads go ahead to do the next bit, or whatever, you know, I think we should do that. Only if necessary. I wouldn't be opposed to an extra meeting if we needed to have one.
Through you, Chair, can I just ask, in relation to that and thinking about managing resources and everybody's time, in the spirit of what is the problem we are trying to solve? Is it, do you want progress reported in between meetings? Because my question would be, did you need a meeting for that? Or is there something else that you might want to meet on?
Only if you needed input from us along the way.
Yeah,
Right.
okay,
But,
thank you.
we-
It sounds like we've got a few risk workshops or risk.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
might be sufficient. But
Yeah. Acknowledging that workshops are for direction, not for decision.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ross?
Mr. Chair, I find it a bit curious that no councillors were interviewed in this process. The councillors have a big impact on this organisation. We, you know, tell staff to do stuff, and sometimes we tell them to do things that are very difficult or different from what we told them a few weeks ago. So I don't know why. I think that would be very useful, because I think a number of us, probably me including, have difficulty understanding all the risks that we face, and how we should respond to those. I don't know why.
That is certainly a fair comment. If you stand back and think about it, in terms of we care, from my point of view, care about how the organisation as a whole manages risk, and the governance team is that this table and the wider councillor group has a pretty important role to play. So you're right that voice and hearing some feedback would have been. I guess we've got the some risk workshops coming up, but you're right. This was the chance to feed it into a review.
Yeah.
That's fair feedback.
Obviously, thought about that.
Through you, Chair, the focus very much was on how we are operationalising risk. So just thinking about the difference between how we operationalise risk within the organisation as a management discipline, as opposed to the governance oversight that you would have as councillors around the table, and just focusing on what's, how do we do risk in the day to day, as opposed to what are the risks that you need to be seeing as governors. And we've got that. That's the second part of the work program, the strategic risk. I mean, we are presenting to you in the report how we do risk currently in the organisation, or not do risk, and talking about the systems and processes improvements that we are looking to make in order to improve doing it.
I guess it was a very in-depth report. Things like health and safety and cyber security, you think should already be embedded, the evidence-based stuff, and things he had that. But I think from my perspective, what I'd like to see is an action list that's reasonably simple, not huge, because something with huge detail like that is very easy not to do the basics really well, because there's so much stuff in there. So an action list that we follow through, and then that's what we have oversight over, because you want to make it simple for staff and for following forward, that you don't have to read all that, and people take different things out of it. So
Picking up on Morris's points there, I mean, I've observed that governance, policy and accountability is the top of the list on page 16, and one of the orange components. So there, while the focus is operationally, I think there is some crossover to governance line of sight of risk, and I guess it comes back to the development of those terms of reference. I don't recall this committee considering those prior to commissioning, but is that something that we should be having some input on?
Yeah, I know this. Yeah, I can certainly recall knowing that this review was going to happen, but yes, certainly I don't think we saw the terms of reference in terms of that detail behind it. Yeah, I am looking at the page 16 where governance, policy and accountabilities is the first cab off the rank in terms of its maturity assessment. So that would be how governance does have oversight. So yeah, even when you're not talking about the detail of risks, it's actually what is the structure in place, which I remember I did read in there, they were talking about the fact this committee exists, but there is that piece around actually how do we feel as governance that it's working. So structure. Yeah. No. I was going to ask a question, Amy, in terms of I saw that so besides the executive getting interviewed, they saw the report when it came back as well. So I was interested to hear what their feedback was once they sort of saw the report and saw where things stood in terms of the maturity level being developing, and then saw the actions in terms of what that sort of what the mood in the room was like when they saw.
Yeah, look, I think it's pretty much known and understood. One of the things about auditing any practice within our organisation is that it's not there as a catching you out tool. It's we're using this in a proactive way to understand actually what does good practice look like and where are we in relation to that. And again, like the internal audits that we've been doing within the organisation, it's very much in the same frame. We know there are some gaps. Let's surface those and work out what we need to be doing to close those gaps. So yeah, the team were curious, engaged and supportive of the actions and the recommendations that are there.
So this establishes a benchmark, I guess,
Yeah.
kind of current practice as of January, February, early this year, something like quarter one. Is this the sort of thing that we would have a desire to see repeated to assess, change against? I appreciate that we'll get some reporting on the actions themselves and whether they've been done, but I guess what we probably really want to understand is has that resulted in a measurable or a demonstrable change in the risk profile?
Through you, Chair, that's certainly the opportunity for doing it in this way, and it's about making sure that we've got sufficient time to have made the changes and bedded them in before we do them, before we did an assessment again. So I just think
Supplementary to that, if I may, then what would be an appropriate frequency or period between for a review?
Yeah, look, I would I've talked to the consultant about that, but I would have thought it would be like somewhere between a year and 2 years, or a year and 18 months. Yeah, given that it's going to take us, I think it's six or so months to actually make the changes that are here, and then you've got to embed them in the work and the mahi that you're doing. So anything below a year, I think, would be a bit frequent.
Right. Just coming to the end now. Just take the last question or two. Yep.
Yeah, two things. I would suggest that governance understanding of the various layers of risk is lacking. And secondly, the one thing that did concern me the most probably is that the risk resourcing is lean, as per page 17 of the agenda. That's it, I know you're working hard to get there, but I appreciate that it's still important.
Through you, Chair, can I just respond to that? So in last year's organisation redesign, we had a risk advisor role. The risk advisor left. We elevated that role to a risk manager role. That role was also to oversee the governance team, but those two functions don't necessarily sit well together, and it was very difficult to secure any resource or recruit anybody who had that complementary skill set. So the decision I took, rather than try and recruit, was to actually utilise Julie, so offset the spend and the salary to get these key pieces of work undertaken to create a basic and solid risk framework, which once in place, we could contemplate what type of resource we might need to manage an established system, as opposed to the person you might need to build the system and do the governance work as well. So accepting we don't have anybody on the ground, that doesn't mean that work is not happening and being supported and facilitated in this way.
All right. So I think we'll draw to an end on this. So just to say thank you very much for having this piece of work performed. We've got a great assessment of the baseline that we're at, actions that need to be undertaken, and that we are going to monitor them ongoing. So
I'll move that, Chair.
thank you very much. No, seconded by David. In favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Amy. All right, moving to page 36 of our pack. Internal audit programs. This is a standing item paper where we see the current status of our internal audit program, which we got up and running a year or two ago now. So it's fantastic that this is in operation now, and we'll just get an update maybe about where it is at.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so in the report follows the normal template, and in relation to the conversation that we had about how we do the reporting, you'll see on page 39 there's an update of the set of actions that have been there from our previous audits. They're highlighted briefly on page 37. I've just pulled out a few things. of your report. So we're continuing to progress actions in relation to procurement and contract management, and that has been supported significantly by the fact that we have a procurement and contract management business partner who's able to give this her full attention. Many of the asset management actions are underway. The resourcing in the ICN teams being closed out, which again is helping enormously to ensure that we have these actions closed out. And we are hoping to get the asset management policy, I think it was due for review at the end of May. Lucy and Patrick, can either of you advise whether that happened or whether that's still on the radar for happening? The asset management policy?
Yeah, through you, Jack, went to the strategy and policy committee as scheduled.
And we've had the cybersecurity audit. We report that as part of our cybersecurity reporting that comes to this council. That's dealt with in public, excluded for hopefully obvious reasons. And we've had our second audit. So our first audit concentrated on human factors, and those are reported separately, as I said. But I can tell you that our fourth audit and our second cyber audit, which concentrated on systems, got underway at the end of May over a 2-week period, and we'll be reporting outcomes and progress on closing out those outcomes at the next meeting in September.
Thank you for that update, Amy. Questions from the floor? I will start. So you have already touched on it briefly, but the first thing that comes to mind is a long list of actions.
Yep.
Some of them might only be a sentence, 10 words, but require a lot of work behind it.
Yeah.
So just sort of keen to understand where the organisation's at with managing such a list and managing such a actions, and they go right across different teams and different investment required. So just before sort of picking on any particular line, we could understand from that high level how the organisation's feeling about having such a long list.
I can't speak particularly for my colleagues, but if I could give you the general sort of tone, it's not that these actions are necessarily separated from any other actions per se. There is a lot of work on in the organisation. We're no different from any other council in that there is a lot to do. And the thing about doing any sort of audit, whether it's risk or internal audit or a legislative compliance audit, it highlights things that you are perhaps not doing or not doing to the standard of a good practice, which means that there are more or different things that you have to do, which then feels like an add-on. But that's also sitting against the backdrop of other add-ons like dealing with the regulatory reform that's coming and the local government reform that's coming. So it does put pressure on people and teams, and sometimes it means that work isn't able to be closed out as quickly as we might otherwise like to be able to do that.
And just a supplementary to that, do you know if in terms of prioritisation of these, in terms of people having a lens to say, actually, okay, we are busy, so let's tackle one or two top priority actions?
I couldn't speak to that across my organisation. That's very much will be dealt with in each of the different divisions and teams. The work often is happening in those areas, so I don't know that there's an overarching organisational approach to that will be consistent from team to team.
Roger.
Thanks, Chair, taking the words out of my mouth, those first two questions, but so thank you for that. what I was going to just add to that line of discussion was that there's a lot of operational detail on the table. And I think it would be good to include a status. It's not abundantly clear, I mean, it's sort of in the comments, but whether we could get the when, accompanied by an actual, so we can easily see what they are. In terms of the prioritisation, appreciate that it does come down to the divisions. At the moment, the table's presented as a organisational table. It doesn't, it's got a couple of subheadings: procurement, contract management, and said management. Notably, there might be another that I'm missing is there. So it doesn't appear to have been sort of worked through and prioritised by division or prioritised within each division. And picking up on Andrew's point there, I do think that would be valuable given how much is in there, to give us confidence that we are addressing the priority actions in a timely way, and I guess seeing things done and removed from the table ultimately.
Okay.
And once they're done, I don't think we need. What would be good to see it's been completed, and then maybe we see it reported as completed, and subsequently it comes off the list.
Yeah, I guess I see some of these actions like considering is, gonna be lost really, because it's just, they think about it, they're all stressed doing things that they're doing. Yes, we consider it, but what's the actual outcome? So yeah, there's a lot of stuff here, and maybe it needs to be the things that can actually be measured more.
It certainly makes sense in terms of the internal report that we receive for each of them are similar to that one we've just talked about in the previous paper. They are detailed and have detailed actions. And then, as we did for the last paper, we've asked to monitor it. So this is the monitoring. So certainly it's a good point around the seeing the status, and especially around those dates, in terms of there's an original when date.
Yep.
And is that the original when date when it's going to be delivered, or has that date moved?
Yep.
Which hopefully those are the original dates. And then if there's an updated date saying, okay, it's going to be 6 months later, at least we can see that there's a delta.
Two things. To Roger's point, it'd be really nice if that list got shorter and shorter, but in an ideal world, things are going to keep rolling in.
Yeah, they are.
So keeping an eye on what's going out and what's coming in will be important, because maybe the list won't get any shorter actually, but the contents will change. And in the interests of your previous training from the Public Service Commission, is there anything that we should be doing differently to get this work?
Well, certainly from this committee, the one thing we can do is just put a message through to emphasise the importance of this. We believe as a committee this is important, compared to, you as councillors will know the other priorities that from your full council and the other committees that you sit on, in terms of what you're also asking management to do. So I guess that's one of your roles, is to cast your mind across everything you've asked management to do, what's on the work plan, and then look at this and say, do we want to send a message that this is important, or are we just going to let them schedule it into their BAU as they currently are? So I'll let that one sit with you for a moment or two. But I guess you can't ask management to do everything at once. They will need to give them some guidance on that.
I guess looking at something here that, something I've been really keen on is making sure we got the capacity and catchment. It says, as an action, consider current staff capability and capacity in the catchment. There's no numbers around how many extra are needed, what would be ideal, and that makes it more measurable. I mean, considering it, you go, okay, we know that needs to be done. You've got a whole mountain of stuff to do. You're not actually going to have a real action on it. It'd be better if there was a number in there, or you know, identifying how many extra you possibly needed, and then you've got an update with something that's more real.
You're right, that's one where there's 10 words which can mean so much behind it.
Yeah.
In terms of, capacity and, yeah. and
Yeah, well,
capability.
I mean, that flows on to, as Amy was saying earlier, Canoa is a big thing, and we're gonna have the people on the ground to be able to do that. It's a big part of what we're doing, and that's pretty key, but there's no numbers around it. So what is the outcome to be? Well, we considered it, that came up in another report, but, you know, something that's more actionable and something that resonates more with the people that are having to do this, like whether it's Lucy, whatever, that she knows, yep. And you could write something down. I mean, considering it, you can go, yep, we're absolutely considering it, because I've brought it up in other committees. So it's getting considered, but as far as anything flowing out of it, what flows out of it?
Is it on the same topic?
It
It
is,
Okay,
yeah,
so I'll
just
yep.
further to that, on that same line, I guess this is just an example of perhaps updating this, but you know, the when column there refers to Q3 of FY 24-25. So unclear to me whether this has been completed or whether there's ongoing work or, by way of example.
And so David, to your point, I think this is especially because if you've heard messages across other committees and full council, perfect example where something can go into the risk workshop, and if you see it as a potentially a high risk or even medium, it can be cited there on a governance risk register and monitored, and then you can direct management more specifically. You get an answer and work on it.
Yeah, well, I just think it's got to be more time bound and actually be something that you've made an assessment of how many extra you need, so then you can measure it. Because if you can't measure it, then I'm not that big on fluffy stuff. Just saying.
But yes, I think we can all imagine it to do that consideration and to assess it. There's a bit in that to understand. But it is important.
Absolutely.
Work on it.
Yeah.
Boris.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, yes, I'm looking at on the same sort of line of what David is saying, but I do think we get reports on these, even though it's not specified there, reports on these in various committees. For example, there's one that says continue to leverage up-to-date data from NIWA and other sources. Well, recently we've just received the big report on climate change implications for Southland from NIWA, and that's been reported back to us through Policy and Strategy, or the ICM, and through the Regional Climate Change Committee as well. So while it's not stated there, maybe it could be stated that, you know, as these come due or are achieved, they are reported to the relevant committee, because that is already happening. Gathering data for gathering of essential data to form the future asset performance requirements of flood protection schemes. Well, that's something that is going on and we hear about that a lot in the ICM committee. So I don't know if it would help by saying in that fourth column that reporting to committees as appropriate or something like that, just to confirm that while the work is undergoing, reporting back occurs in this particular way. If that's helpful or not.
That certainly makes sense. I think okay. Lyndall, I think there's a bit where we can wrap up a few of these comments into one action that we can ask of management, and so we can do that at the end of the questions.
Just in terms of priorities then, as chair of the Strategy and Policy Committee, I think perhaps there are some policies, there's some policy work that could be prioritised so that management have got the guidance that they need from council. There's a few things like the asset management policies, working its way through, but there are some underlying things in the table as well that dovetail with that. So just making sure that that what S&P have got in their policy review schedule actually fits with the priorities here would be really important. I know I probably should have it in all of my head, but I don't. Just matching those two timelines up so that these things are further up my schedule, mate.
So I'm thinking about, so all these questions are of the similar theme in terms of just how we help communicate to management and give guidance around the priority of these, amongst other workloads. And a reflection of, we can't ask Amy all of this to feedback, because it's right across different GM teams. And just noting that on today's agenda, in terms of who's talking to us around risk in the organisation, we do have really one person mostly. So it would be good to get updates from the specific divisional GMs on the actions and how they see them. So I think the request that I would propose, you would agree, is that we ask a schedule where the GMs come and talk to the committee about the actions, the priority, and so they will be able to talk to it like you have in terms of dovetailing into other committees, strategy and catchment areas and the like, so we can see how they plan to tackle this and how this list dovetails into the other work programs that are going on. Yeah, but I think we certainly can't just ask the one person here. We would need to talk to them.
Well, provided we're not duplicating stuff. So if all they're saying is that this report was provided to such and such a committee, we're not going to hear about the whole report, are we? Is that what you mean?
I mean, we've got a list of actions here that have been divided out to each GM.
Yeah.
And sort of understanding from them how they plan to tackle it, what priority.
Yes.
They can give us their overview here.
Yeah, I would like to think that they might come back and say, well, that's something we do anyway, and then it might be actually there's a couple here that are really important, and if we tweak the wording, had better outcomes, then we can track it better. So simplify and focus on one or two things that are really important rather than having too much.
That's it, and they would know that the best.
It's stuff that's keeping you awake at night.
Yeah, exactly. It's not
Highlight.
no need to try and finish everything tomorrow. So
We're better to make sure we finish some things well that are important and everything gets lost on the fog.
Two things for me out of that conversation. One, I support that, and question to staff, I guess, is do you need more input from us to assist with that prioritisation? Which ones you work through? And then I'd love to hear the answer to that.
I think the chair's point, I hold the internal audit portfolio, but the mahi goes across the organisation. So actually, I'm happy to take that conversation back to my colleagues and come back to you with that.
So with that in mind, then I'm happy to move an amended recommendation, adding a second point there that we request staff return to the Risk and Assurance Committee with the prioritisation, the added completion and status, and I guess the clarity around which division is, so by division, I guess, you know.
Can I ask one clarifying point in relation to how that then gets presented to the next committee? Do you want every GM that's named to be here to be able to present their bit, or do you want to do a portfolio? So 1 week you have one GM and a different, next meeting you have a different GM.
I'm happy that you provide a schedule.
Yep.
So we have sort of one per committee that
Yep.
would work.
Probably do two at a time.
But yeah, but we'll let you decide that. in terms
Okay,
of what-
yep, I'll talk to my colleagues, yep.
There was some crossover. I'll be happy with 2 or 3 at a time, actually, just to get it
Yeah.
sorted.
I just observed that some of these, the WHO has, in some cases, 2 or 3
Yeah.
GMs, so perhaps it's a case of staff coming back with those suggestions how it works, and we see whether that's the right way. But in the first instance, I think we really just want to get this prioritisation through this, and clarity around who's holding responsibility for delivering it, and hear from that person. And I think it's probably something that we work out after the meeting.
You're okay with the amendment wording in terms of what's going to be put in?
And do you have, I've got some words, but have you got some words? Yeah, I've got request staff return to risk and assurance with prioritisation, added completion and status, and clarity about who is responsible, with in-person attendance.
Yeah, and look, I mean, hopefully we'll see stuff that's completed and moved off, and it won't be a big, it won't need a lot of representation or, move through.
You add that as with in-person attendance as scheduled. All right, in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, thank you very much, everybody. It was very worthwhile. Page 50 of our pack. We've got health and safety report. And we have Michelle. Welcome. I would let Amy do an introduction.
Yes.
Is it best?
Very briefly, I am delighted to introduce you to Michelle Hesketh. Some of you may remember Michelle if you were here in the early 2020s, late 2019. Michelle was our health and safety business partner. She had a period of time away from the organisation, and she has come back in a full-time permanent capacity as our health and safety manager, and I'm delighted to have her back. Michelle is very experienced in the health and safety space, and has not only worked in multiple roles in health and safety, but has also been part of the New Zealand Institute of Safety Management and held committee positions and leadership positions in that organisation and here in Southland. So really delighted to have you back on board and presenting to your first Risk and Assurance Committee meeting.
Well, welcome, Michelle. And we're very pleased to have you here. For being involved.
Noting the report, most of the report predates Michelle actually joining, but Michelle's here to talk.
How long has Michelle been on board?
Pretty much since, is it just 20th of April? 20th of April,
Okay.
yeah, mid-April.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So we won't ask you too many
Yeah.
questions about earlier dates, but no. Thank you for being here though. Anyway, so would you like to just give a brief overview of the report? Would that be?
Yeah, so the main thing I want to bring to your attention that there was a typo on page 53. The total number of speeding events was actually, it was not 881, it was 520.
That's just better.
And so what we have worked out is October to December, there was 2.6 events per 1,000 kilometres. And January to March, there was 2.7 events per 1,000 kilometres. So it stayed fairly flat. 2 would probably be a good benchmark measuring. So other than that, I take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
David?
I guess I have a question around, is there any things that, I read through and I don't see anything in particular that stands out that need investment in plant or something to help with an accident or anything that really way out of the ordinary? This is just humans being humans. It's not a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's certainly no investment in plant properly. I think probably more an investment in just the foundation of our sort of like the health and safety management plan, strategy, the framework, things like that. And then going into how we're managing critical risks. So it's more my mind.
Is there anything that comes out of the matrix around the E-roads thing that you consider to be needing more attention, like harsh braking or acceleration, or is there, does that do some individuals require some talking to about their driving habits? I mean, does that flow out of this?
Training.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, I certainly think we need to set a benchmark. Sort of, what is our benchmark, and when do we want managers to step in and talk to their teams?
Yeah.
Certainly, yeah, I think that's a piece of work that we're working on.
Yeah.
And get it right, and so that they can move on.
Yeah, because it may be that one or two individuals are overrepresented. I guess that's sort of.
Yep.
Yeah. But you're following up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thanks.
Through you, Chair, just to add, we, you know, as part of our initiatives to reduce speeding events, we already have a protocol where managers, you know, are leading into conversations and GMs are made aware of significant speeding events, so taking active management interest in this, but more perhaps is required if we want to, you know, if we're currently sitting at a 2.5, 2.6% per 1,000 K, as you said, 1,000 Ks, to get that down to 2%, you know, there's probably extra effort that might be required to deliver that.
I was quite keen to hear your view on health and safety in general in this organisation, just with a fresh set of eyes. You've been here for just 2 months, but you've been involved in the sector, in the industry, health and safety for a number of years. So just, yeah, be keen to hear what you think, sort of stepping back into the organisation and what you've seen in that sort of short amount of time. And I guess, you know, health and safety, there's policy, there's process, there's what you want staff to do, but really it's sort of a cultural thing. And you think about what this organisation does is on the road, so you know, vehicle, working in water, you know, working alone, odd hours. So just keen to hear sort of any reflections you might have from when you first stepped back in the door and you had a look compared to where you've, you know, else you've been, knowing of course that organisations are short of time and resource and money and the likes, but still be good to hear what you.
Yeah. So putting on like an auditor hat if I was coming in.
Yeah,
I think it has a good culture. It certainly does. There's probably a lot of clutter in the paperwork side of things. We can simplify things. You know, it's going to make it easier for people to understand. I think we need to focus a lot more on the critical risk, that sort of stuff that's going to kill us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is a piece I'm working on as well. And probably good to get an understanding of our reporting, and are we reporting what we need to be reporting and what sort of exec and this committee want to hear. And just making sure our reporting makes sense. Like even in this one, we've trained 13 people in this. 13 out of how many? Like that doesn't really make sense. So that's something I'd like to see a bit better as well.
Yeah, what I definitely endorse all the words that you've just said in terms of they make sense and yeah, we would certainly support you with. So, David.
So further to that then, Michelle, are you saying that maybe some of the clutter, the forms are from previous before it became critical risk? Because the focus went from all risk to critical risk when it was all risk to it, you know. So the revising of that, and then secondly, around a culture of reporting near misses or things that just need lead on to us being able to modify something to take away this. Then we got a culture that people report that stuff easily because the paperwork's not so onerous.
Yep.
But I found that in other organisations, you're going to have it enough simple enough in a culture that it's just something that happens rather than
Yeah, I think the easier we can make it for people, they're busy out in their jobs, so the easier we can make it for them, the better. And I think building that culture where they understand that reporting those near misses is, possibly saving lives down the track, or potential serious harm. So that understanding, and I think it is fairly good here, but in any organisation it can drift off. People get complacent. So
So simplifying some of the forms that have to be filled.
Amy, would you like to?
Yeah, just to build on the near miss comment, I think we've previously reported to this committee that near miss reporting and actually reporting generally had dropped off. It's improving actually, and like as Michelle said, continuing to build on that. So we have got a good culture of reporting, and particularly near miss reporting is really important. And there's more than just it's too hard or the paperwork's too messy. There's more than one reason why people don't do it. It's not just about
Lyndall.
Thanks, Chair. Just reflecting on the term paperwork, and wondering whether there's an interplay in what it might need to be with the IT team. I'd like to think that paperwork is actually an online form. So just wondering whether there's a plant spend that might be necessary to enable more digitisation of that process if it's not very digitised already.
yeah, that would be people being able to do it on their phones is certainly easier than someone being able to do it on paper. We do currently have some who do it through a Survey 123 on their phones, but generally most of them are on paper.
Right. So there might be some interactions with the other parts of the organisation that are required, and perhaps budget. Would that be better?
On the same
Same hub.
yep, same
Yeah.
yep.
So in a previous life for in the Parent Trust, ParaNet had a really good app on the phone. So when people were out in the field, if something happened, they could do it there and then, and it was done. And it was something that got taken up really well because it was simple. You could do it straight away and then it was finished. So it was on their phone, which they had with them, and I guess we were out and about a lot, so that would make sense. So there's something to look into, that maybe being able to borrow, use at there for them. Makes sense.
Yes, product. Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. Thanks for your insight at an early stage of the organisation. I have two questions. One related to the operation report, and I guess about this workstation unable to be easily altered, and wondering if there's any more that you need from us to prioritise that.
That is, it's a fixed workplace up front in reception. So they've it's a pre-existing injury she had, and so it's just having her comfortable at the time. And I think the physio's been in again with the issues here, and so we made some adjustments for her.
And then following on, I certainly like your suggestion that your table one could have a little more detail in terms of the proportion of people that are through that, or good to understand whether we have a high level of training or if a missing link there. But in terms of vehicles, I'm just interested to understand what the approach is to other vehicles. I see you've got four-wheel drive assessments, and also what if there's an approach to sort of interagency sharing of vehicles. You know, we have a lot of talk about efficiency and travelling together or pooling, but how does that work when we get to a landowner, for example, and off-road vehicles? Is there an organisational approach to that?
I guess you're the health and safety manager, which I don't think you're looking at CUB. Would you be? No.
No.
Yeah. So, yes. I understand the question in terms of efficiency, value for money. We put that on through our other papers. That's right.
Yeah.
Cheers.
That's fine.
Yeah. Anything else from anyone in the paper?
I guess one thing, just on the E-roads thing, is it continuing to evolve in the way that it works? Having driven to Dunedin in a car that tends to beep all the time, and became quite a distraction really. The driver at the time was me, but it just seemed to be going off a lot. And maybe it's evolving, and maybe the need to get to a new version that's a bit more user friendly and more focused on bigger things than just beeping at every sign that you come across. So, do you know? Or
I'm not 100% sure. It does. I mean, E-roads is continuously updating, but I don't know the ins and outs. Yeah.
Amy, would you like to?
Yes, not so much about the E-roads evolving, but I would just be suggesting that if the so two things. Sometimes the cars themselves also have alert systems in terms of lane drift and distance of the cars at front, or they have that external monitoring. If a car comes too close, they will beep. So the first thing is, is it the car making the sound, or is it the E-roads? But I would suggest that if the E-roads was making a sound, it was delivering real-time feedback about driving behaviour, which is what it's supposed to be doing. So it's the inbuilt safety mechanism, inherent in the system.
Joe, I'm sure you'll it's the E-road system which is sort of in your remit. I'm sure you'll get a bit of a handle on how the system's working over 20 months. So great. All right. Come to the end of the paper. Who's going to move? Roger, second, in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much, Michelle. Welcome, great to have you here. Page 59. Enterprise people risk.
I had hoped to have Emma Weston. Is she? Yeah, you able to let Emma in? She's online. Yeah, there you are, Emma. So this is a new paper for us. We sort of foreshadowed it last meeting. Emma Weston is our acting organisation development manager. She's got a lot of skill and background experience in change and transformation and organisational initiative, generally speaking, and she has done some research in the background which has delivered a risk assessment around our people. We've also incorporated, because I know the committee's been interested to hear about our level of turnover within the organisation, and we've got some stats in relation to that, which our people and capability manager, Gary Andrews, is here, can answer any questions in that, as can the GMs who are here, because it relates to recruitment in this space. But Emma, I'm not sure if you're there. Can't see you on screen.
Yep.
And would like to take us through your report.
I would love to. Good morning, everyone. I can't seem to get my video.
Welcome, Emma. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Just by the way, but we can see that you're taking yourself off mute.
Ah.
Sylvia,
Mm.
All right, we will,
We might just have to proceed without.
should we go to the next
Oh,
paper and then come back? See if we can,
Yeah.
Video.
she can't get her video audio working.
she could dial back in. I'm here, we'll try and fix the background. And maybe we move to the next paper.
Yep.
Because she's gonna try and fix it. And then we can,
You can come back.
so we just got probably a couple of minutes while we move to our annual activity plan, which is just on page 64. So, Aidan, give us a.
Yes, so this is our standard item that comes to this committee, which talks, has on page 65 our work program for the year and just outlines or articulates any changes to that. So there's no critical strategic risk deep dive to this committee, nor is there an insurance report, but everything else is outlined as stated. We have historically, as part of this report, and we will going forwards, have our list of critical risk deep dives, but this is very much going to be enmeshed, as we've previously discussed, with our strategic risks, which is a piece of work which is currently underway. So once we have those finalised with council, we'll be able to develop that program of works going forwards. However, this is also an opportunity for the committee to provide any feedback as to what they might like to see going forwards. So if there are matters of risk that you would like us to bring back to the committee, irrespective of whether they're on the forward work program or not, this is the opportunity to discuss that and agree there too.
So let's all take a moment to look at this again, just reflect on Amy's comments.
And also, though, Chair, on our our conversation today about other things that we have traversed, and there will be things that you have been traversing in the wider council sphere that you feel are matters that should be being brought to risk and assurance that we can facilitate. We'll just finish this item, Emma, and then we'll come back to you.
So, yeah, Lyndall, if you want to start.
Yeah, notwithstanding the very grey area that local government reform and REM reform and all of those things. Is there a piece around managing our critical relationships that may or may not need to feature at some point? I genuinely don't know whether it should come through here, but there are some critical relationships locally at the very least that this committee may or may not need to be aware of any of the dangers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got, well, Amy, do you want to go first, or should I?
No, I wasn't saying that.
Just as I hear that, I definitely I can't recall if we've had a deep dive risk assessment on that particular point to date, but it's one where I have seen other organisations talk about it specifically. So they will have a paper and presentation on the risk to their external relationships, and you can sort of talk about some of those key stakeholders. Especially so that is not an uncommon subject to form a paper at this committee.
I think it's and the mitigations and the actions from identifying those risks, I think, are critical and urgent. The government has put some pressure on our timeframes. So I wonder if there's I get you.
And we did our risk workshop for governance is going to occur sometime over the coming
In July.
In July?
Okay. Yeah, so there's a Kanoa one which is specifically focused on Kanoa and 4 nights time. And then our broader one is part of our strategic risks and, and risk appetite will be, I think that's 22nd of July.
So that's where exactly that one can be elevated to then.
Yeah, we'll certainly need some guidance on that from yourself and.
So can I just clarify though, because I want to be clear about the purpose of that workshop is to go through the suite of risks, as I understand it, and assess your tolerance for those. What I thought I heard though was it would be helpful to understand, like if we think about the risk bow tie and, we really want to interrogate that specific risk in a way that we would with a critical risk deep dive, and whether that's a separate piece. Now, that's not saying we might not be able to have time to do both on the same day. So just putting that out there.
So my view would be we wouldn't interrogate it in detail at the risk workshop, but it would be identified as a risk that we want to hear more about, and then it can go into a deep dive later on.
What I would be asking is that something that this committee just wants to agree today. Do you want to agree that with council, provide that direction as part of council in that conversation, or is that something that this committee feels is warrants attention at the current time and would like to be brought back to it or to council for a conversation?
For that, timeframes are tight, so I would advance it as quickly as we could within reason.
On the topic?
Well, yeah, sort of on the topic. So we've got the audit fee proposal. Again, with another organisation I was involved in, we used to have a discussion with the auditor around what they're seeing in their organisation and comparing it to best practice in their sector.
Sure.
And we used to find that was really useful in focusing in on some stuff rather than just getting the huge amount of documents. You would actually learn a bit about where we sit. So is that something we do, Amy? Or
We'll tackle that one when the auditor's in the room, but I must admit from what you've just said, I haven't felt we've received that in that way from our current auditor, but we will tackle that when we when we get there. I'll just go back to Lyndall's point because it was quite a specific point, and maybe at the moment I'll say we'll wait until the risk workshop unless I hear otherwise. So
If we take a deep dive onto the workshop.
Or at the workshop we identify a deep dive is needed, so it can come after the workshop. Unless you want to do it at the actual workshop, but it will be a specific request.
Just to Lyndall's point on that, timeframes are sort of tight in that regard. The next risk and assurance is scheduled for the end of September, which would be quite some time. I don't have line of sight immediately to, probably could dive into it, but perhaps you could consider if there's another meeting that we could bring it to. Is there?
Because I guess when it comes to, this is off the back of reforms. So when it comes to reforms, there's a plethora of risks to the organisation. And so it'll be making sure that you as a governance team are getting across all of those that you want to, of which that one is one. 7. So yes.
I'm confused now. I think that this committee should give direction to have that deep dive as soon as possible, rather than wait for it to come up at the workshop and then schedule it after. Acknowledging that the risk workshop will not be brief, I wouldn't imagine. So either immediately after or soon after, I think we could direct that to happen.
Through you, Chair. So can I ask 2 questions in relation to that? And the first one is, so we're talking about reform. Do you want to talk about reform katoa because we have regulatory reform and we have local government reform, or are you thinking specifically about the structure of local government?
The local government reform.
Local government reform, just
it's those immediate relationships for me. That's what I'm.
okay. Local government reform. So my second question then is, and I know we're talking about this with this committee, specifically, do you want it specifically, that deep dive to be specifically with this committee? Or would you like to invite your broader colleagues into that conversation and have that as a council conversation?
Should be council-wide one, surely. And I mean, the whole thing's council-wide. You know, for 4 of us here to deal with it and tell others, they're just, you know, we all need to be in that conversation.
Yeah, I agree with David on that, and looking at the calendar in the next period of time, there's opportunities on the council meeting 24th of June, and then there's committees of the all strategy and policy and ICM July 8 and 9.
Yeah, but the workshop's not till the 20th.
The week, yeah, so we're talking about doing this before the workshop.
Yep.
And just acknowledging some timeframes here. We need to allow for staff to do the mahi in the June timeframe to go out as well.
So subsequent to that, the 22nd of July is an ordinary council meeting.
And the workshop. Or leave it in your,
workshop.
leave it in your cable.
Following.
Yeah.
I'm hearing we would like to do this
Yep.
as soon as possible. I'm hearing that we would like to involve all of council in a conversation, and I will take an action to find a suitable date and make sure we've done the work that we can bring to you about that deep dive.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amy. My last 2 points just before we move on. It'd be great to see the insurance update at the next committee meeting. And lastly, you may want to consider, as we're talking about getting an internal audit update from GM in a specific division.
Yes,
That
yep, got that.
that potentially could dovetail with a deep dive as well, if there was one in that particular area. Often it's the GM who's presenting to us on
Okay.
a strategic risk.
Yep.
There's opportunity to be efficient and collate
Yep.
those two together. It's just to consider.
I was going to say, if you're inviting all of council though, is that appropriate to that deep dive?
Oh,
Is
no,
that
sorry,
appropriate?
I'm meaning just in a standard deep dive.
Oh,
in
right,
September.
okay, sure.
Sorry, in a
Yep.
standard deep
Yep,
dive.
yep. So you're directing
No, that was more just a,
the insurance report to come. to you.
yes, I just, note that it hasn't come this time
Yep.
and directing it to come
Yep.
to next time. Right, I'll move the report, seconded by Lyndall, in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried, thank you. All right. Emma. Hello.
Kia ora. Apologies for earlier, I'm not sure.
No, we still can't hear you, Emma.
Oh,
see
can't
you.
hear.
Can't hear you. Is that,
Mm.
yeah, we can see you talking, but
Why is-
Anything at our end?
Yeah, it's anything at Erin because she's unmuted. I'm wondering if it's
Hello?
sound. Council Chamber's got the sound on it. The host here doesn't.
Hello?
Should I try unmuting this host laptop? Do you think that would?
I don't know, maybe give that a go. We might be
Yeah.
echo.
Echoes though. Give it a go.
Chance with echolocation.
Has that done anything?
Once again.
Try it again, Emma.
Hello?
No.
Might have a quick look at the one over there. Just
Okay.
Yeah.
We look at our technology.
Hello?
Yay!
That's weird.
There was
We
a
have
button
an
for
echo.
consent.
Do
Don't
we have
worry.
an echo? No, where is he?
No.
And I think, you just keep on talking, Emma, just,
Hello?
yeah, fantastic, we can hear you
Okay.
perfectly.
Oh
So,
my goodness. Apologies, team. We got there.
no, I think it might have been, right, we're all talking now.
Okay.
Great, so I'm just going to move us to page 59. And you did give a bit of an
I
introduction
gave
before.
an introduction.
So to say welcome to Emma,
Yes.
who's after organisational design and transformation. So Emma, would you like to give us a brief overview of the paper, and then we can ask questions.
Sure, thank you. So tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou, mo te koutou wā I tēnei rā, ko Emma Weston, aho. A ke te whakatū aho I tēnei pepa tuaru. So good morning, my name is Emma Weston and I am the Manager for Organisational Development. I'm presenting you with the Enterprise People Risk Profile today. So I thought as it was our first go, I would just give you a little bit of an intro into it and I guess why it's here and why it matters and how it's been built. So from a enterprise people risk perspective, I guess this profile serves three core purposes. So one is around prevention of harm. Harm meaning all forms of harm that can occur within the workplace. Reducing uncertainty in our decision making and protecting what we value, and obviously our people as part of what we value as an organisation. So for council or for this committee, I guess that includes the workforce capability and the capacity needed that helps us deliver to ratepayers. I'd make a comment here that people risk is often underweighted, I suppose, in our risk framework. Sometimes when we talk about people risk, it can feel a little bit intangible or I guess at a distance. So in practice, what we see is that unmanaged people risk is one of the most common sources of organisational failure. And one of the things that gets in the way of us being able to, I guess, evolve and adapt, which is obviously something we're really interested in our ability to do, given our reform context. We often see people risk surfacing as capability gaps, usually at critical moments, usually when there's pressure on, and they tend to go undetected until there's a crisis. So understanding our people risk profile is really important to our ongoing stability and effectiveness. I've taken a really structured approach to assessing our people risk. This should help us catch issues earlier. It should help us better support decisions under uncertainty. And obviously for this committee, it does help you demonstrate a level of due diligence and manage your, I guess, your legal and reputational exposures. So that's the kind of thinking that was there when this profile was created. It's the first one, so it's a decent starting point. It's by no means a shiny finished product. So we continue to learn more and more about this risk as we capture data. The way the report is structured is there's a number of categories in the report, and these were created by mapping against known people risk frameworks that exist in the world. So to your point about best practices earlier, and change management industry norms. So these two things are what would normally help people like myself create a format for a risk report. And obviously our council's current operating context. Creating the categories basically involved identifying areas where people related risk is most commonly showing up. It's around making sure the categories reflect the way that we operationally think about how we work in a local government setting, and they're collections of data too. So where data can be gathered and monitored, and it means something when put together, that's also informed how the categories have been created. Within each category, we've then assessed the level of risk using your standard ISO 31000 principles and evaluated some likelihood and consequence. Although at this stage of the reporting, we haven't kind of gone into a granular level of that. Just a note, as we went through this exercise, you know, we are really good with some sets of data that we've had for some time, we've been collecting and reporting on for some time. But in other areas, we've found that we do have some gaps. And so building robust data foundation for future reporting is going to be really important. In April to June, we did a stock take of what data we're collecting around this risk. From June to September, we'll sort of consolidate and test the integrity of that and potentially develop a couple of new data sets. And then September onwards, we'll look at where our data gaps remain and what we might need to spend some time on filling. So yeah, as I say, it's an honest but by no means polished, complete product. I'll take the report as read, but currently the headline finding is that we are sitting at the medium level of risk. This will be one to watch carefully over time. I'd expect each category to have a greater degree of variance, and especially as we go into that context of change and transition, we would expect this report to look a little bit different. So this is a first go. I take it as read and I welcome feedback and questions.
Thank you very much, Emma. Do appreciate having this report for the first time in front of us. Yeah, absolutely endorse your view of it being a key, people being the most important part of any organisation. We need to be over the top and understanding what's happening. So I'll just ask for questions from the floor. David.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, Emma. I know with budgeting, we've gone through the organisation and only put in our annual plan those that roles that will be filled. So the position, so the numbers in front of us around vacant positions are current as at when, and do they take into account some of those decisions around the annual plan that have been made?
Through you, Chair, I think it's probably a question for Gary. Can you let us know what the date, with effect date from with this table?
This was current as of last month. Obviously it's changed to change the snapshot. Not more than that. So yeah, so this is essentially one of those tables that is obsolete as soon as you
Yeah.
So that was as of last month. So that has moved since then.
Was your question, David, around whether it correlated with some numbers that have gone into?
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is that what we're looking at has already changed, and just do we have any indication as to what the current numbers are? I mean,
so from a vacancy perspective, as of today, we have 14 active vacancies. Just to give you an idea, last month we had 4 leavers. So again, that's changed the total number of vacancies we have currently within the organisation. So we actually update it weekly. It's that fast moving.
So if we just spend a minute talking about sort of questions related to the vacancies piece, and then we can talk about some other parts of the paper to just check. So I'll just also ask a question around the vacancies, or unless I guess it's to you, Gary, if that's right. Would you like to come to the board?
Yeah, come to the table.
Yeah.
And just one question, just to understand the current vacancies. If we use the numbers that are in here, so there are currently 31 vacant roles out of 227. We're actively recruiting for 11. So just trying to understand 31 vacant roles. 11.
just so what you were saying before is that the vacant roles today have gone from 31 down to 14. Is that
No. So we're currently, as of today, we're currently actively recruiting for 14 positions.
Oh, I see.
All right, yeah. So the roles that are on, we've put here on hold. That could just be purely a timing issue. So it's where we're re-looking at the job description. It could be we're waiting for sign off through October. Well, so whilst we say they're on hold, there's a sort of a term for us in P&C which says like P&C aren't actually doing anything with that at the moment because we're waiting for other bits of information.
Just off the top of my head, it seems like quite a big difference when I sort of hear the organisation needs staff and needs
Yeah.
resource. It just sounds like quite a big gap.
Yes, it does. I mean, bearing in mind that's based on the number in the LTP, so what budgeted. So our budgeted headcount is 227. I think currently we're at, as of today, 189 or 190 off the top of my head. So again, that fluctuates slightly because again we've got a lag. Somebody resigns and leaves. We've then got a potential lag of getting the job description updated, getting the advertising done, getting the recruitment process finished, and sometimes that recruitment process can take 1 to 2 months.
And usually people give advance notice of them leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our standard notice period is 1 month. So if you've got somebody that's resigned today, they will leave in a month's time. But from a recruitment process, by the time we've advertised, gone through the recruitment process, it can be, in some cases, 2 to 3 months. And if we don't get the right person at the within the first tranche, we have to go back through that whole thing again. So sometimes it can be a timing issue.
And through you, Chair, like if I go back to the explanation I gave before about what I'm doing with my risk role, it's represented as one of the vacancies, but I'm offsetting that salary cost against the work that I'm actually having done to progress the work in the meantime.
Roger?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for getting this report to us and all the table. Yeah, really helpful starting place. I know that a number of our colleagues have been asking for some more detail on this. I'm sure they'll be pleased to see that. I do think that we need to be conscious that one of our key interests here is seeing change over time, and this doesn't provide that at this point. This is a single snapshot. So I appreciate that things change kind of on a day-to-day basis, but we probably need to be looking at monthly or quarterly kind of change to see whether we're stuck in somewhere or whether we're moving through. But to Andrew's point, 2/3 of positions being on hold does raise concerns for me, particularly considering our operational underspend and what would seem concurrent delivery challenges. So, I'll be certainly looking to see a change in that positions on hold.
Yes. Yep. Just a couple of questions, I guess. You put it in the report, it says a number of departures are happening within the first 1 or 2 years of employment. Have you actually got any numbers on that?
We do a P&C report monthly, which shows the number of leavers per month, and that gives us a trend. Our the 19% turnover rate is slightly higher than it has been for a little while, but it's still below the national average, and we're pretty consistent around that sort of 15 to 17% mark around our staff turnover. But we do track it monthly.
The second, so if I may, another little thing I see in there that you go away and look at sick leave appears to be high. Have you got any numbers around what would you expect and what it is currently?
So again, we track that monthly, and we do look at spikes, obviously. At the moment, we've got a bit of a spike. There's a lot of colds and flus going around, but we do look at our trend, and our trend is down. Although we've got spikes, if you look at the trend overall over the last 2 years, it is slightly coming down, but it seems to be pretty consistent Although we get a spike during winter or during an area where there's a lot of absence, we're not seeing a steady increase in the number of sick days that are being taken over the year.
I guess
And
Sorry, can I just
Amy, do you want to
add a
conclude?
little bit to that, because this is one of the areas where I'd just like to highlight that the quality of the data is not particularly sound, because it's everybody who's reported an absence for illness. Now, that could be people who are sick, that could be people who have got a sick dependent that they're at home looking after, that could be people who are taking an hour out to go to the doctors. We've got no way in the system of splitting out those different categories. So whilst at a really high level, people are not in the organisation because of illness, it's not necessarily reflective of them being sick. So I just, this is one of the areas where, Emma alluded to earlier, we need to refine our data, but the system that we have at the moment does not allow us to do that easily. And it's a if the request was to be made at the current time, that would be a heavily manual process.
It's actually based on timesheet data, not reason behind it. So something books.
so it's not broken out.
No, it's purely the coding on our timesheets around this individual's claimed so many hours of sick leave during the month.
I guess it's of interest though around compared to other councils where we are, and then also around stress and stuff that's leading to people taking time off, and how it cycles where it's been, where it is now. But as you say, this is first attempt. So
And again, our system doesn't allow, doesn't have reason reporting. So again, there's no central way of capturing that at the current time.
Patrick, would you like to?
I'll just make a comment the technology team is working with Gary and his team to develop a human resource information system in this case. So we've got a more modern way of managing human capital, or a system that can better cope with managing human capital. We may see some better reporting that won't address the limitations of what the time checking system does or doesn't capture, but it should enable some better reporting, should they, Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an opportunity for us to specify the type of reporting, as they're working with Emma as well. If we get the system up and running, we can start to look at our reporting in that more granular detail of, yes, this individual has claimed 7.5 hours as sick on their timesheet, but actually what does it equate to? Is it a independent? Is it a hospital appointment? Is it?
Great, thank you. All right, might move on from that one. Lyndall?
Yeah, a couple of things. Thanks, Emma. I really, I'm finding this really interesting, actually, and acknowledge that it's a baseline for us to go forward with. My colleagues have already mentioned a couple of things like the positions on hold and the feedback, etc. What I particularly like is the next steps that you've included in the report. And I'm particularly interested in the readiness for change item within. Really concerned about how your next steps, have mentioned that senior leaders have an important role in making sure the pace of change being expected is realistic. Tell that to the government. But just wondering what, how we can, or what we should do to help prepare the readiness for change. What support can council generally, or whatever, I don't know. I'm just really concerned that we should be doing something.
I think that's a great question, and I'll share a bit of the data background for this comment as well, which might help me to answer you. So some of the things that inform senior leader readiness for change, I suppose, are around focus and their individual understanding of what it means to lead through change and remain focused on priorities and value, as well as where risk sits and so on. Some of the data that drove the commentary around change readiness here was that when we asked our staff last year about their preparedness and adaptability for change, two things came up. One was that many staff didn't agree that they had a clear understanding of what was the most important thing to be working on. And so that lack of focus was a real I guess, threat to our efficiency because we were trying to do too many things at once and it wasn't clear what was most important. That came up. So 106 people out of our survey said that they didn't know which was the most important change effort. So definitely a role for council in keeping us focused on what's most important. The other thing that came up in some of the study from last year was that about half of our staff think that we've got the people, systems and resources to deliver change well. Now, I look at that quite optimistically as we move into reform to go, actually, our people do kind of understand what we need for change, but only half of us feel like we have what we need. So there's definitely a piece there, I think, particularly for the middle tier managers to support them in their leadership of change. And so what learning and development opportunities are we providing for them to, I guess, keep them situationally aware and also feeling confident. That middle tier being the one that has to translate the direction set by this council into the actual operation of the business. So those are two things that sort of inform the assessment of this risk and are two areas that I think council could be really supportive to the organisation on in terms of managing this risk.
Thank you. That's very clear.
And I'm glad you like the report because I'm very passionate about it too.
Can I just add one thing? You know, when we did the organisation redesign last year, you know, we specifically put in organisation development roles in order to be able to support the mahi around organisational change, because we recognise, you know, more so than ever, you know, how timely it was, that the organisation needs support to be able to deliver what's being asked of it at the current time, but going forward as well.
So in the interest of time, so Emma, I think we might just wrap up this one here, but say, look, we're looking forward to having this as a standing agenda paper. And one of the themes from today's committee has been around how we monitor these areas going forward. So I believe probably these risk headings will stay the same. But if you could use today as a bit of a baseline of what you've got, so that when we see it in 3 months' time, we go, okay, that was what we said 3 months ago, and how do we compare today? So have each of these risk areas gone up or down? And so that would be helpful from a governance monitoring point of view.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Kia ora.
All right.
In terms of progressing the recommendation, Chair, I see there's a number of things that are noted there.
Yes.
But notably, the next steps are not. And I wonder if we should consider amending that recommendation to endorse the next steps throughout the paper. So I think, you know, what I'm hearing is that there's lots of support for this, and we want to see it continued, and we want to see continual improvement with it as well.
So yes,
I'd be happy to move an amendment there, yeah, to see a 6 point there that we endorse the steps, the next steps being endorsed, start implementing the next steps. And I guess I'm also looking at back to the positions on hold in our initial discussion, and wondering if there's any further sort of endorsement or prioritisation or that governance can offer staff to progress recruitment there, short of endorsing, actively recruiting and filling those roles.
Through you, Chair, I'm wondering if first step, and we can potentially do this through the Chief Executive's weekly note, if that's helpful. Some further level of detail about what those, the what and the why. So to Gary's point, which ones are it's just a timing matter of recruitment, which roles are being actively held and why, because there may be good reasons. Can't speak to all of the vacancies. That might be helpful to understand rather than a wholesale, let's get cracking on with recruitment.
Sure.
Yeah, just as a level of refined information that might be helpful.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yep.
Makes sense. But we'll add the amendment, which I think you were writing down that we
Yes,
will endorse
they will endorse the next steps and the staff implementation of them.
Yes, great. In favour? I'd say, so Roger is going to
Happy to move that, yep.
move it. Yep, seconded by Boris. In favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Emma. Looking forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you.
All right. We have no thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, fortunately, no extraordinary or urgent business. So do we? Public excluded. So if we could have the reasons read out, please.
In accordance with section 48(1) of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 and the particular interests protected by section 7 of that act, that the public be excluded from the following parts of proceedings of this meeting. Namely, confirmation of public excluded minutes from the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting for 2026. The general subject matters to be considered while the public is being excluded, the reason for this resolution in relation to the matter, and the specific grounds for excluding the public, as specified by section 48(1) of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, are set out below. So we've got that table. Specifies those ones. And I can end on the light screen.
Great.
So
I will-
sign on the
I will
whole.
move that. Seconded by David. In favour?
Aye.
Yes, carried. All right. Just
Confirming that the live stream's been stopped.
I think it just need to click another end. That stopped. Thank you.
Chair, can we just have a